What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the DK Garage. I'm Jeremy.
And I'm Joe.
We hope you've been enjoying this NASCAR vacation we're all on. I've certainly enjoyed it. I know you have enjoyed it. We get a little bit more time. We're about halfway through, but there is a lot of stuff I think we need to talk about. So I think we need to do a nice little mid-vacation episode. What do you think?
I think it's time for it. There is a lot of things that we can touch on. We've been able to enjoy the 1 week off, and I think it's been since like 1991 since we've had 2 weeks off to really get to kick back. And I think I enjoyed my week off, went up into the mountains and with the family and enjoyed the outdoors, did a little fishing and hiking and got away from it all. And now we're right back into the mix, and there's so much we could talk about, and I think there's plenty to discuss, and why not have a little episode in between?
I didn't plan on initially wanting to even go into too much detail about the previous race. But that was before the previous race unfolded the way that it did. I was not very happy with how that race unfolded up there in New Hampshire. What was your initial take on it? And I'm not saying, effort-wise or anything like that. I'm kind of just saying from product-wise what we saw on TV. What was your take on it?
I thought it was a major letdown. We all understood there was some rain. We all saw the water seeping from the track. And to me personally, the product itself, you want all your top drivers in the mix when it matters. And we saw 3 Gibbs cars spin out. One of them couldn't continue, and Kyle Busch, who's been really strong, and he's locked into the playoffs. It doesn't really hurt his season, but it hurts their team's momentum, what you were kind of building up.
Well, it does hurt them because they had a decent shot to win that race, maybe even pick up 1 or 2 stage wins. That's 5 to 7 points they could pick up that would carry through each and every round to help them make the championship for. The same thing for Truex. I know they're still sitting pretty nicely with their playoff points, but that's a huge blow. I mean, 5 points doesn't seem like much. 1 point doesn't seem like much, but we've seen it already. We'll probably see it unless we get a bunch of winners. We may see it one driver make it in by 1 point. I think that was a huge blown call or no call, however you want to see it, by NASCAR, especially when it seemed like even the guy who drives the pace car was like, hey, we're getting some sprinkles down in 1, and they said 1 to go, and so everyone went. I think the spotters were all expecting it to go under caution or stay under caution or something. And the thing is, there was a decent little red flag afterwards, of course. But after that, they got a good portion of the race in. I think had they waited just a little bit longer, I think we could have got a much better product, because really from there on, I thought they didn't really make anything else right. I think they blew the ending too. I mean, this is my opinion. We'll get into that a little bit. But your two of your top 10 drivers in the sport get taken out because track's not ready to go.
Yeah,
they can't happen.
And it was just unfortunate that it happened the way it did. And I think NASCAR better learn from these situations and realize, hey, people show up to see Kyle Busch take home a checker flag. Like, there are a ton of his fans. I've got one of my kiddos is a Kyle Busch fan, so he was bummed when we were sitting there watching it at the campsite. He was out immediately, and he's like, well, there's no reason to sit around and watch the race now, and you lose some of your audience. And it's one of those things, if you would have just waited to throw the green flag, I think we would have seen a better race, better product. Even the way that ended, you mentioned, that kind of, to me, hurt the integrity of the race, because we are so close to getting a real race winner. It was only going to take a few more minutes to get it in, and there wasn't wet water or water standing on the track or anything along those lines like we just got done talking about. So to me, the situation, they should have let play out until, hey, if we can get the whole race in. If there was 1 lap to go, they just had to get it in, and somebody spun out, and they waved the yellow at that point, and the race is over. So there's a lot of ways you could look at it.
Before I comment on that, I want to say, obviously, I see the tough situation that NASCAR's in. Rain definitely hurts. It sucks when you're all set for a race to start, and it gets postponed or delayed or ends up going to the next day. It really sucks. It does. But when your guys get taken out under that fashion, because I was thinking, what's kind of the difference between this happening and then what happened with Kyle Larson going out in Talladega on the first lap because his car overheated. Well, the difference is their team screwed up. You live with that as a DFS player. You live with that. If you put money on them and as straight up, you live with that. Those things happen. You can't avoid that, but you are hoping for the best sort of officiating possible. You're never going to get it perfect, but dang, it seemed like I don't understand why they had to push it that far. And then to your point, at the end of the race, here's the thing: at the end of the second stage, they said we will call out. If we're going to end the race early, we'll give you guys 10 laps. Everyone knew that. Okay, that's fair because that track does not have lights. For whatever reason, they haven't upgraded or they don't plan to run any night races, so there's no lights there. So if it gets too dark, 10-lap warning, y'all have fun. Okay, you understand that. It's getting later and later and later. They keep running, and then they decide with 19 laps to go to give the 10-lap warning. That leaves 9 laps, about 4 extra minutes. I wasn't there. I know these cameras make it look a lot lighter, but I heard a lot of drivers say after the race, we could have at least run those 9 laps. How do you call it short like that? And not that I'm a Gibbs guy by any means, but 2 of their top drivers get taken out at the beginning of the race, and then Christopher Bell has a legit chance he was running faster than Eric Almirola. He was running him down. He cut into his lead. 9 laps to go. Who knows what happens? But he obviously didn't have enough time. That's a bad call in my situation on NASCAR's part.
Yeah, and another situation that was impacted by the start and then the delay and the red flag was Joey Logano got sent 2 laps back, and that he had one of the fastest cars and made up those 2 laps and was there close towards the end. He could have been a person that dominated, or he could have been a driver that dominated that race had it played out differently and that situation wasn't put in front of his team. And it hurts playoff-wise too. Like you said with Kyle Busch, like at least they were able to get through this one and have a strong finish, but still it would have been nice for a stage 1 or 2 or however they race would have ultimately played out.
I mean, it happened with 5 or 6 laps. So I understand like the rules not working on your cars under caution or under the red flag. I mean, I get that, but there's no practice. That's 6 laps. What's the harm of saying, hey guys, while we set this rain out, you guys got 6 laps. Why don't y'all take it to the garage, work on it, or if you want to work it on pit road, you guys can make adjustments. It's 6 laps in. And give Kyle Busch and Martin Truex their team a chance to maybe get those cars back on track. Because, again, it's 6 laps. You're already throwing a caution for, competition reasons. Why not count this as like a practice? I think, and I've defended NASCAR quite a bit this year. We both have, because there's a lot of fans who just like to complain. And I certainly don't want to be labeled as one of those, but to me, this is one of those times where you kind of got to call NASCAR out on this, in my opinion.
Yeah, they do a lot of things right, but at times you just kind of like, what's going on? But they called it consistently with the way that you just mentioned. I think the scenario ultimately you can't really do anything about it.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
The results stand as of now.
Exactly, and it is something they'll learn from, hopefully, and understand that we want a better product. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we are fans. We have expectations, and we want to see how things ultimately would play out in the right circumstances.
So I'm curious, and this isn't meant as a critique of NASCAR. This is just how it is, how the rules are. Everyone knows these rules. I guess I'm assuming everyone has kind of somewhat agreed to these rules. It's like this for the whole season. If you win, you're at least theoretically in the playoffs. Obviously, if we have more than 16 drivers, then it gets a little dicey. We may experience what that's like. I don't think we will, but who knows? It's been a wacky season. But how do you feel about, regardless of the driver, if you're 25th, 26th, 27th in points, have had some bad luck and have just been awful in some races. Had very few races where you looked like you were even top 15, eligible. And then you come out and you have a great race, not taking anything away from what that team did at New Hampshire. But you win the race and now you're in the playoffs, and someone potentially like a Austin Dillon, Tyler Reddick, guys who have been way more consistent throughout the year, who have not got the win, now are potentially on the outside looking in. Just how the rule is, what's your opinion on it? Do you like it, not like it, neutral?
I like it. It creates competition. It makes you really, at this point in the season, focus on winning the race. It makes for better competition, in my opinion. And to me, I think we saw Eric Almirola win at New Hampshire, and it was kind of a surprising win to some. I really wasn't too surprising to me, but I think we might see it again with like a Chase Briscoe, his teammate, winning at either Indianapolis or even at Daytona. Daytona's a wild card, so you could see some drivers really fight to get that win that are in that back half of the in the 20s or whatnot in points, and really find themselves in the mix. And NASCAR's really done a good job of advertising this is the best season ever, and the best season ever, in my opinion, would have every single spot locked up by a playoff win. Does that happen? It's a real possibility.
It is a possibility, and who knows, might even have one miss it and still be in there. What I'm kind of curious about is, so first of all, let me comment. I like this rule because it gives those back marker teams a chance to get in a bigger stage, and it does obviously create more drama. And hey, look, we're talking about it right now. Like, that is obviously what NASCAR wants. I understand that angle of it, but I do think at some point this is still supposed to be a sport too. That's how you are advertising it. It's not just about entertainment. If it's just about entertainment, then why don't you guys really script all the races? If that's not what's going on and it's a sport, I think there's maybe got to be a little bit higher benchmark to get in. You win, but you got to be top 22 in points. Nothing ridiculous, but you got to have been at least more consistent throughout the year, or have at least, whatever, 20% top 15 percentage or something like that. I'm just saying, just so that way you don't get guys who really has been on it all year, just haven't been able to get that win, and then some guy who's been off all year get in because of win.
Yeah,
I'm torn on it. I really am. I like it from the way you described it, but also from a competition side, I feel like you are screwing over some guys and sponsors of those teams.
Exactly. I was about to get to it. As a business owner and a sponsor, you really, if you want to see those wins pay dividends, and that equals playoffs, and you're in the prime spot for that. So to me, I think it really is a winning situation for everyone whenever you win and you get in, and it does create that entertainment value, and it makes that money continue to roll into a sport that you really have to have money to be able to compete. And whenever you get that win, we saw it with Michael McDowell and that team. Hopefully that helps them be contenders in the playoffs when it matters. It'll be interesting to see if that money they won in Daytona and now they're in the playoff mix, how that kind of situation helps that team.
Yeah, these next 4 races are going to be intense. The thing that's I am curious, because I haven't seen anyone talk about this. There may be a clear rule, so if you know the rule, comment down below so we can figure it out as well. What if we get enough winners and the regular, like we have 16 winners, and the regular season champion, Denny Hamlin's, if he does in fact win the regular season championship, does that mean there's 17 drivers, or does one driver? Because I think if you win the regular season championship, you're locked in. It counts as a win. So how does that play out? Is there 17 all of a sudden in the playoffs?
I think this is a question for Bob Hawkers. Can he bring that to light? Because that's going to be something that's going to be asked, especially if we see a winner or two happen over this next couple of races, because we've got a stretch of races that are really interesting and set up nicely for a playoff run, and there's some drivers that really could find great opportunities in these next 4 races before the playoffs happen to take advantage of a race or two.
So, should we get into those races, or should we get into a little silly season first? Because there is drama every which direction right now in NASCAR. And when we come back from this break, I mean, it really is on. But there's a lot of pieces falling into place for next year, which is going to be a wild year with that new car. Which direction do you want to go in first? This is a choose your own path sort of adventure.
I think break it up and do some silly season updates. I think that will kind of tie into what we'll talk about, where we can kind of round off the last 4 races before the playoffs, and we might even talk a little bit of the playoff scenario if we have a little bit of time. But there is quite a bit of silly season news to talk about because dominoes have fallen already. We've seen really the last big one was the Matty D situation where he is now a free agent. We all knew that was going to happen, but the surprising part was Harrison Burton being called up to really take over that ride, and him and Austin Cindric are going to be the next phase of Team Penske, because Brad Keselowski, he's doing his own thing now too. Man, there's all these pieces that intermix. It's a big old puzzle that we're putting together for 2022.
So let's get into that, but let's kind of recap because there's been so much happening. It's really easy to forget. So one of the first big pieces was Colleague Racing. They are going to be racing in the Cup Series next year, and they got 2 charters. So they will have 2 teams, and we know Justin Haley will be one of the full-time drivers. It looks like Allmendinger. He's going to be doing a few part-time races, so there'll probably be a little rotation. I would imagine Kaz probably gets some opportunities there as well. So it'll be interesting to see what that team does. We're both big fans of theirs in the Xfinity Series, so really excited for them. Another lower series team is moving up, GMS Racing. They're making their debut, or at least they're anticipating on racing. I don't know if they're going to be able to get a charter or how they're going to do it, but that's what they are trying to aim for in 2022. And then there's still the rumors of 2311 Racing trying to get a second charter, trying to secure that and get a second team going. The biggest rumor mill there is Kurt Busch to that second car. Which one of those 3, let's just kind of break it up into kind of easier to digest nuggets. Which one of those 3 are you kind of most excited for, anticipating, or surprised by?
I'm really torn between the 23XI and the Colleague situation. I'm really a big fan of Colleague and what they've done in the Xfinity's program, or with their Xfinity program, and they've had a race or 2 now under their belt in the Cup Series and have performed strong. Kaz Grala at Daytona, and then Allmendinger at Coda.
Yep.
And those are building blocks for that program, and they go to work every day, and that's what I respect, is whenever you see that hard work pay off, and that's what that team is about. They definitely have a strong performance that we've seen being developed over the years. And then I'm excited to see 23XI in that second team. I think all the rumors probably come true with the funding that Kurt Busch has with Monster on board. That's a pretty powerful punch that he will be able to bring to that team, and experience and everything else that you really are looking for from a second driver, in my opinion, especially whenever you've got somebody like Bubba Wallace that could learn from him and continue to develop. How about you? Is it like, out of those 3, like,
I mean, I'm right there with you. If they do get a veteran driver in 2311, it'll be good to see exactly where they are, especially if Bubba's still kind of doing what he's doing this year, next year. We saw what Kurt Busch was able to do for Ganassi. He's really done some good stuff for that team. And this is obviously no shot to Jamie Mack, but he has outperformed Jamie Mack. And Mack was in that one car just a few years ago. So he's gotten a lot from that team. Obviously, it's not apples to apples comparison, but he's done a lot for that team the last few years. So it'd be good to kind of see, okay, really where is 2311? If he's getting similar results as Bubba, well, then we know, hey, there's work to do. So that's a nice little element. Plus with the new car, all that. But I'm kind of with you. I want to see if Colleague Racing, if they can come in and actually back up some of these good runs they've had. When you're just running one race here, one race there, you can put a lot of time into that car, really dial everything in. But it's a different animal going week to week. And I'm really curious to see if they can have what I would consider the success that Trackhouse Racing has had so far this year. We're about to talk about them. If they can do what Daniel Suarez has done with that 99 team, that would be, I think, a success for Colleague in their first year, especially with those 2 charters. That means they potentially go in some places. So that's kind of how I feel about that. But speaking of Trackhouse, they have upgraded as well. They bought out Ganassi. They have 2 charters. We know Suarez is one. Some of the rumors are saying Chastain possibly stays. I think that would be a good move. But they may be shopping around, trying to find a vet. Maybe see if they can get Kurt Busch to stay. I don't know if that happens, but that would be interesting. What's your thoughts on Trackhouse going into next year?
I really like what Justin Marks has done over there. It's very, very impressive to see what that team has accomplished in year number 1 already. And even if they missed the playoffs, it still was, at times, really kind of mind-blowing. I wasn't expecting what I've seen so far from that team, and going in and now acquiring Chip Ganassi Racing and taking over that complete stable and bringing Daniel Suarez in as the foundation from a driver's perspective, it's a strong move. It's bold, and that's definitely something that I'm looking forward to witnessing how they continue to develop. I think it's their second driver who they bring on is probably going to be really well thought out. I don't think they're going to just shoot from the hip on this one. So if they can convince Kurt Busch to stay, if that's what they're looking to do, and he brings that or is able to maintain that funding for them, that would be huge. But at the same time, they could potentially go the route of maintaining Ross Chastain and continuing to develop him and see if that's something that ultimately plays out, because we both think that he's got great potential. He's a little rowdy at times, but it's not too crazy, so they could tune it up a little bit, and he could be a great race car driver for him. But I don't know if they're going to have very many other drivers on their list. I haven't heard too many other guys that have been mentioned, but it's going to be interesting to see ultimately how it plays out.
So we've both been fairly busy the last week or so since the break, so you're not keeping up with every rumor and whatnot, so it's who knows exactly where everything is. But you mentioned earlier, we know Matty D, he is looking for a ride. We know that Harrison Burton got the call up to take over for Wood Brothers, and we know that Brad Keselowski is going to Roush Racing in the 6 car, which means we're not sure yet for Ryan Newman. Some people are saying a 3rd part-time ride, free agent. We don't know, but Brad is in the 6 car, and he's a part owner of Roush. So good for him. Cindric gets moved up to the 2 car. Not that surprising. So I kind of brought up, we don't know exactly where all the rumors are. So if these are already out there, I don't know about them as of right now. What do you think the chances are Matty D ends up in either that second Trackhouse or the second 2311 ride? If that happens, let's say Kurt Busch goes 2311, does he possibly get that spot over Ross Chastain? Do you think they take a chance on him? You think Matty D's going back to maybe Xfinity? Where do you think he kind of ultimately ends up?
I really don't know. I
would love for Bob Levine to start another team and do that thing again.
Because we're both huge fans of Matty D and his accomplishments and his work ethic and everything really about him. I really hope that he is able to secure something for 2022, and something that I think he gave up a little bit in this past year to ride out the ride with Wood Brothers, expecting the dominoes to fall with Keselowski potentially, and then being able to take that ride. Like, there's so much stuff that's played out that it's hard to see him potentially out of the series, but I don't know if it plays out in his favor. I honestly don't see it happening at this point, but I'm really hopeful that something aligns, and I'm sure he's thinking the same thing, and we'll ultimately just find out as the weeks play out. But I think hopefully for him, he can maybe sneak in a win and make the playoffs. They're right there on the edge of things right now. I don't think
they've gotten better over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I don't think he's really going to be able to point his way in, so he'll have to get a win, but only time will tell.
He certainly could. I mean, he's had good runs in road courses lately. Wood Brothers has been off, but since the switch of crew chiefs, he had a very good run at Road America and led quite a bit of laps, had a great battle with his buddy Austin Cindric. Maybe at Indy, maybe even Watkins Glen. I'm not saying that he's up there with the real big dogs, but hey, you lead some laps in this series. That's saying something. Oh, this is embarrassing. We don't have video for the remainder of this, what was a really good episode.
Yeah, unfortunately, technical difficulties got the best of us. We're looking to upgrade our equipment. Probably have to do that sooner than later. But we do have a lot of great content left to listen to on the remainder of this episode, so I think it's worth sticking around for.
Yeah, absolutely. We really went into some great detail. I know you'll like it. Please forgive us this time. We will continue to work to provide you guys better content. Enjoy the rest of the show. And led quite a bit of laps, had a great battle with his buddy Austin Cindric. Maybe at Indy, maybe even Watkins Glen. I'm not saying that he's up there with the real big dogs, but hey, you lead some laps in this series. That's saying something. Possibly get a win there. And when you got a track like Daytona, anything can happen. He's had good runs there before. He's had a lot of bad luck as well. So we don't know, obviously, what will happen there. If he can get in the playoffs, that really helps his chances. But I kind of with you, I don't know if he really ends up at one of those real good premier spots that are still open. I think he's going to have something else open up for him if he's going to stay in the Cup Series. And I think one thing that could maybe, I don't know what the contract situation looks like, the 38 ride. Anthony Alfredo has not had the best start to the season. He's a rookie. He has had the unfortunate luck of going to all these tracks with no practice or qualifying. So his poor performance is really not anyone's fault. It's just how it is. He's real good friends with Michael McDowell. I think that's a possibility. If that seat were to open up, I think Matty D could end up in a 38.
I could see that happening. It be an advantage for some going into a new car and having a more experienced driver that could communicate how to make the necessary changes to the car, even though it's new for everyone. He has probably a better understanding of how that would be communicated than an Anthony Alfredo. So I could see that if a scenario like that opens up. Yeah, Matty D would be he's shown that he's great in backmarker equipment and that he is able to make that team better over time. And yeah, that friendship that him and Michael McDowell have might ultimately over time play out.
Will be interesting to see.
I've got a question for you though.
Okay.
So, since Matty D's out of his ride, Harrison Burton got the call up.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Harrison Burton taking over the Wood Brothers ride? Because we really haven't talked about that at all since that's been brought out. We've talked about the Matty D situations, but I haven't really heard your opinion on what you think about Harrison Burton being called up in this situation.
Well, I think at some point, I think Harrison Burton could probably have a fine Cup career. His dad had a real good, solid career in the Cup Series. So there's really, I don't think he should not be in the Cup Series at all. But I think based on performance, I don't know why he's getting called up at this point. When you kind of dissect some of his wins that he's had, he doesn't have a win yet this year in Xfinity. And his wins last year, a win is a win, but not all wins are equal. And and he had a few fluky kind of wins. Helped that team make a nice deep run in the playoffs, but based on what I've seen out of that equipment or that team, he's in Joe Gibbs Equipment Xfinity. Obviously, Kyle Busch has won in that equipment. Ty Gibbs has run incredibly well in essentially the same equipment. Daniel Hemrick has, I think, looked better than Harrison Burton. I get it. He's young. He does got some funding. I think that at the end of the day, kind of money talks, and Matty D has to walk in that situation because I don't think he has that same kind of funding backing him that Harrison Burton has. So ultimately, money wins out, but I think if we're evaluating where he's at in his career, what we've seen so far, I don't think that he should be in the Cup Series. I don't think Anthony Alfredo should be yet either. And that's not as an intended shot, but that's kind of where I land on like those two guys, like especially Burton. I think give him another year. Give him one more year in Xfinity and see what he can really do. Cindric, he's earned his way in there. He won the championship last year. He's more than likely going to win this year. He's been dominant. He's won a lot of races. He deserves to be in there. But to me, I think it's just an early move. And I think it could hurt him early on in his career. He's going to be kind of behind the eight ball, I think, a little bit.
I think it was definitely a business move, and I think it could be something that propels him actually into a better situation long term if he's able to perform well in the first couple of years. But
I mean, with the new car coming, we don't really know what's going to happen. It could suit him perfectly. It could be a disaster. There's veterans who may not be very good at this car, and guys who don't look that good right now could come out and do amazing things with this car. It's going to be very different than what we currently have. So you're right. It could play out perfectly for Harrison Burton. But if just based off of performance, that's how I'm kind of answering your question. I think it's an early move, in my opinion.
I kind of tend to agree, but I can see the upside in the move, especially with some of the young talent coming up with Gibbs and just being able to have the opportunity at Team Penske potentially for Harrison Burton. That's a huge opportunity too. So,
although he may also be getting potentially pushed out a little bit by Joe Gibbs, because Ty Gibbs needs a ride, and I don't think he's going to go through the Truck Series to get that. I think he's going to Xfinity, so he's probably in that 18 ride next year. So it might be a little bit of pushing. Who knows? Joe may have called up old Wood Brothers and Penske and said, "Hey, you guys can have him because we need to make a spot for him."
Yeah, I think Ty Gibbs is going to be one heck of a driver. He's already shown that, so I'm excited to see him develop.
I don't know if we've talked about this, and I don't remember exactly where I've heard it, probably on NASCAR Twitter. I think the way that Truex's contract is worked out, he's got one more year under contract, and he's not necessarily intending to sign until he gets some races in that new car, because he's thinking about possibly retiring if he does not like this new car. That opens up a ride for Joe Gibbs, for potentially a Ty Gibbs or someone else to snag up that spot. That could be huge, real huge.
It's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out. Over the next year, we're going to see so much change within the sport. Completely impactful on the development and the trajectory of how this stuff is headed. And there's now a really new influx of younger drivers that are making impacts that we hadn't seen before. And every year we're getting a couple more and replacing some of these superstars that are slowly fading out. Martin Truex is on his way, potentially. Kevin Harvick
at some point, yeah.
Those are just two, and those are two of the top names in the sport. So we're gonna see some changes, and this new next generation car, with all the unknowns, like you said, Truex might say, "I hate this thing. I don't want to run wide open." If that's really the way that they're going to try to do this, he might want to have more input on how this development goes. And if they don't listen to the drivers, he says, "I want to hang it up."
Yeah, maybe go do something else like Jimmy Johnson's doing.
Exactly.
Running a different series. I mean, I'm sure there's other cars that he's interested in driving besides just NASCAR, or maybe he just goes and hangs it up and hangs out on the farm. I mean, who knows with him? He's not one of those really in the spotlight kind of drivers. You don't hear too much outside the track from Truex. So would be a big shakeup though for that team, and to see who would potentially replace him in that ride. Any other things that you've been kind of hearing, rumor wise, on how some of these dominoes might fall? And we know Larson is not going anywhere for a couple of years. They got that locked up for another couple of years, and I know Chase, that's in the works. And let's see, I think Byron, he did get locked up, and so I think Byron is also getting that. So Hendrick, they're trying to be set for the next probably decade, to be honest. I don't think anyone else is getting in Hendrick anytime soon.
Yeah, they've locked them up for the next 2 years, I believe, on most of them. So they're locked down for the next generation car in the year after, and most of those will really be determined by all the unknowns that are going to be played out over that 2022 season. But yeah, I think they're locked in. But I'm also interested to kind of see how this whole move with Brad Keselowski plays out. Being part team owner and how he is might not have a whole bunch of say initially on how this plays out, but long term it sounds like he's going to have a huge role, which is probably exactly what he wanted. It sounds like he really wanted to be model his self kind of after Roger Penske, and he's setting himself up now to kind of put himself eventually into the ownership role, and he's got a lot of knowledge. He's a champion. It's going to be interesting to see how he, if he brings a big impact to that race team in year one with all the unknowns that we just got done talking about. Like, how is that really going to affect Roush moving forward? I don't know if we have any insight right now as to what that looks like. But
with the new car, no one really knows. So this could be a really good thing for that team.
This year's, with all these changes, I think we're seeing all of this because there are so many unknowns with that next generation car. So people are willing to take more risks this year because the parity next year might be pretty equal. So these smaller teams that we've talked about over some of our podcasts, these smaller teams might.
I think of like RCR when you say something like that, because both Reddick and Dillon have really stepped up this year. You give them a little bit more equal equipment, especially Reddick, the way he's shown to be good on a lot of different types of tracks. Dillon to a certain extent, but he kind of has like his little spots. You can kind of gauge when he's going to maybe overachieve a little bit, and you can kind of tell when he might underwhelm. But Reddick, he's looked good on certain ovals. He's looked good on road courses. He's been up there battling at times on super speedways. I think he's going to be he's probably going to end up being sort of that lead guy for RCR, at least based on performance. That's kind of how I see it going into this next year.
Yeah, I was excited to see him get that ride, and last year he was one of my favorite drivers to watch as a rookie because he was making it exciting again. And whenever you look at this year so far, he has been strong in any environment, and the big surprise has been on the road courses to me. I've really been kind of surprised to see how strong he has been. He had the pole at COTA, and then we see him have strong finishes, not just be fast on one lap. And whenever we look at the way the NASCAR schedule has been changed over the past year, having so many road courses on the schedule moving forward, that's huge. And to have somebody in your stable that is that strong and has developed that quickly in that environment, it says a lot about Tyler Reddick and his development.
Well, just since we're talking about it, they are, for the season, they are neck and neck as far as driver rating. Reddick has a 79.6. Austin Dillon has a 79.4. Reddick has a 14.4 average finish, and Austin is one spot better at 13.4. But here's one of the big differences. This is what I think really has separated him so far. They both have a top 5. Top 10s, Reddick 11, Austin Dillon 6. There's the difference. There's where I think Reddick will take over performance-wise in the future and sort of be that lead guy for RCR.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how, like we talked about, these smaller teams might be able to take advantage of. Hopefully, we get to see the parity between these teams a little bit more. We've seen it more so this year, I think, than any in recent years. I'm excited to see how it continues to develop.
So I'm excited to see how the rest of the season continues to develop because it has been wild. It's now pretty neck and neck up at the top for the regular season championship. You don't want, if you're really anyone in the field, you don't want Larson getting that regular season championship. You probably want Hamlin to get it because he already has a ton of playoff points. Larson, that is. You give him 15 more, he more than likely punches his ticket to not Homestead anymore, Phoenix. I bet he wishes it was at Homestead. Yeah. But Hamlin, at this point, at the way these wins are falling, I think both him and Harvick are in jeopardy of missing the playoffs because they don't have a win. They are pretty strong on the remaining courses, at least from some of the data that we have, Michigan in particular. But if they don't punch their way in with a win and we get a couple more of these dominoes to fall, I don't necessarily see, unless, of course, we get the winners, if there's a few guys getting on points, I don't see Hamlin missing, but I could see Harvick not making it in on points. Where are you kind of at with these last 4 races? How do you think these things are going to unfold?
I wish I knew, but having 2 road courses in Watkins Glen and then the Indy road course, that's big, and we know the favorites there typically: Chase Elliott, Martin Truex, Kyle Larson throws his name in the mix, Logano
Kyle Busch,
obviously, but Hamlin's 6th, 7th, 8th, somewhere in the mix.
But he has a win at Watkins Glen.
He does
in his career.
He does. So wouldn't be surprising to me to see it happen. Indy road course is going to be another similar situation, and then we get to what is it, Michigan?
Yeah. Yes, Michigan.
So Michigan, I would see, especially with some of the speed that we've seen from Stewart-Haas here recently, Kevin Harvick has 5 wins there. Even though it's not been his best season so far, I could see them putting out all the right pieces together to get a win and stamp their playoff ticket. I don't know if that happens, but if they do, great. But I could definitely also see him missing because points and being on the outside with 1 or 2 more winners in these wild card races, especially Daytona. That's the 4th race before the playoffs start, and to me, really, you almost have to have your ticket stamped before that race, or you might be on the outside looking in.
Yeah, obviously Hamlin's got a good shot to win Daytona if he's needing a win to get in. He's better at the Daytona 500 than this 400 we're going to be racing at. But obviously he can get around super speedways. But you're right, you don't want to be focused on that because you may have a guy like we had last year, William Byron, punch his way in because of that win. We may see Austin Dillon or Ricky Stenhouse, guys who are, right there on the cusp, probably not going to point their way in. They're both good at that track. Bubba Wallace, he comes to mind. I think he could punch his way in potentially at that race. You want to be locked in before Daytona if you are one of these big teams because, especially Harvick, he has not been the best at super speedways. I mean, it's hard to be consistently great at a track like that. So the pressure is going to be on these next three weeks, or 3 races, I should say. I'm really excited, but I bet you there's a lot of nervous teams right now.
There's definitely nervous teams because you play everything out over the season to hopefully set yourself up where you're not waiting for the last race to find out your scenario for the playoffs. You're really wanting to get it stamped in early and kind of be able to dial in your program for the races that matter. And then you see big names like Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin that haven't really got that win yet to stamp that playoff ticket. It does create some chaos, especially with the amount of winners we've seen this year. It's really shaping up to be like the greatest season ever. But I'm really excited to see if maybe someone like a Chris Buescher, who's right there on points, can find a way to, or he's not right there on points, but see if stuff falls, if a couple people slip, if an Austin Dillon or a Tyler Reddick don't perform like they have, and they have a little bit of a skid. Then we have someone like a Matty D or Ross Chastain also just...
Ross Chastain might win Indy.
Yeah, it's going to be so interesting to see if somebody just sneaks in that shouldn't even be really mentioned, even in points. Like there's enough races left that we could see something shake up if you get on a slide.
You know, one of the things that you were kind of or that I was thinking about while you were talking, when it comes to this Indy road course, I've kind of had it in my head, you know, for a while. My gut feeling is we kind of get a different winner. We get a Chase Briscoe, Ross Chastain, something like that. But I got to think back. Circuit of the Americas was a new, fresh racetrack. Road America was a fresh racetrack, and Chase Elliott won both of those. Now, in my mind, I kind of give the Coda win a little bit of an asterisk. He was great, but he did not have the strategy. If that race does not get so rained out that they finally call the race, I think Larson ends up winning that, more than likely. But hey, showing up and knocking these new tracks down, Chase could end up getting that Indy win, and then we have a real battle for points going into the last couple weeks. It's going to be really fun to watch.
Oh, that's going to definitely be fun. I'm excited to see kind of how this all plays out, because this is the time of the season that you really want to start performing strong. It was nice to see Penske really perform well last week, and kind of, to me, it reassures that they're really on the path to performance in the playoffs with the 750 package. So I'm looking for some continued signs throughout this next 4-race period before the playoffs start to really, I guess, make me feel more comfortable with my decisions on when it comes down to crunch time. Who am I putting my money on?
So who are you going to put your money on these next 4 races? Who do you got winning these next 4, just for fun?
Man, I'm with the 2 road courses, Watkins Glen first, and then Indy road course. I think Chase Elliott wins one of those 2. I'm not sure exactly which one, and I think Martin Truex potentially wins one of those 2. I'm not going to pick either one. I just think one of those 2 will win one of those 2 races.
Right.
I think Kevin Harvick gets a win at Michigan, and then the wild card race at Daytona to stamp their way into the playoffs. I think it's Bubba Wallace. I really do. I think he is. I think they set themselves up, and we saw the speed in the Daytona performance early on in the season. I think they really put all their money into that bucket and really strongly show that, hey, they want to come play. So we'll see if they can stamp their playoff ticket on the wild card race there at Daytona. How about yourself? Who do you have?
So for Watkins Glen, my pick is Chase Elliott, but I could see Truex winning that race. I think it truly comes down to between those 2. Obviously, we mentioned Larson could be in there, and it could be a Kyle Busch, Hamlin, but my pick would be Chase Elliott. Indy road course, I agree. I think Chase, I already said it. I mean, he's doing great first time going to a track. I could see him winning again, especially if he gets that win at Watkins Glen. They're going to have everything going for him. They'll start out front. They'll have the best pit stall selection. Could easily do it. I don't know if they've released this yet, but if Cindric ends up racing in that race, which I think he might be, if he is racing in the Indy road course race, I think I would go him. But if we're going with just a for sure Cup driver, I think I'm going to stay with kind of my Briscoe hunch, especially if there's any sort of bad weather. He's looked great in Xfinity at that course. So I think he could punch his way in, which would really shake things up. Wouldn't that be something if Harvick ends up missing because his teammate Chase Briscoe gets a win? Just think about that for a second. Amarola and Chase Briscoe potentially make the playoffs, and Harvick doesn't.
I really could see Chase Briscoe winning that race. It's no stretch of the imagination for him to do so if they come out with a strong car and a strong performance. We've seen him perform well in road course environments, and it wouldn't be shocking at all.
For Michigan, that's tough. I could see the 11 team finally breaking through, but I think with the equipment he's had, potentially being on somewhat of a little bit of a skid, I think Kyle Larson actually punches his another win in, gets some more playoff points. I think he takes down Michigan. He's had good career stats there. I think that's where he got his first career win, actually. So I'll go Larson at Indy. And for Daytona, I think I'm with you. I think my pick is Bubba as well.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of been feeling that for a little bit. The thing that worries me is him knowing that he probably has to win that race to get in, and him being too aggressive. Because one of the things I've noticed with him compared to a lot of the other drivers that I've seen, he seems to he'll buddy up with someone, but he ditches them the first chance he gets, and it works for a second, and then he ends up going to the back. And I think he's going to need to have some help out there on the track. So if he can keep a cool head, I can see him with that team, that performance, taking it. But if it's not him, I think my fallback pick is also a wild card somewhat. I think it would be Austin Dillon.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if I'm going with the second wild card, I'd pick Ross Chastain.
Yeah.
So there's going to be something wild, I'm pretty positive.
Chastain
happening.
may be in the mix right at the very end, but I just see him being too aggressive. It ends up – I could see him having what happened with the Penske guys, Logano and Brad, and him coming in, making a move, and then they both wrecking. That's what I see happening with Chastain. But I like that where you're going.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. That's what I'm excited about, is just having Daytona placed on the schedule where it is. I already love Daytona and super speedway action, and to put it at a wild card race for the final playoff spot, potentially, that's huge. It's so much entertainment value to that, and NASCAR's done a great job on setting it up, in my opinion.
Okay, so kind of aside from the picks, because obviously we don't know how those will fall and, fall into place, does Kevin Harvick make the playoffs?
I think he does. I think he stamps his way in at Michigan. I think that's where they get it done. I've seen just enough progress where I feel comfortable enough. 2 weeks till that happens, though.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see as time progresses if I'm as comfortable with that. How about yourself? Are you thinking?
Well, hold on. Do you think Denny Hamlin makes the playoffs?
Yes. I think that we don't see enough new winners with Chase Elliott and Truex potentially getting.
So does
wins.
he wins the regular season championship?
I don't know if he wins the regular season championship, but he's going to be maybe behind Larson, but he's going to be point his way in.
Okay. So he makes it, Harvick makes it. So just as a pick, who wins the regular season championship?
Larson.
Okay.
You? What's your scenario look like?
I think Harvick misses. I didn't think that would be the case. I kind of agree with you. I think the best case for him is Michigan. So I would expect that team to go all out. And he's looked better. That team has looked better. Obviously, his teammate just got a win. So there's something there. But that was a 750 track. This is 550. So my pick is Harvick misses the playoffs at this point, which was not in either of our scenarios at the beginning of the season. Hamlin, I think he does end up making it because I think you're right. I think we probably don't get quite enough winners to force him out. But I think I'm in agreement. I think if Larson ends up taking Michigan, the biggest thing I think honestly, I think the regular season will really truly also come down to Daytona. And I do give the edge to Hamlin in that situation at Daytona to win that championship. But no, I'm gonna go Hamlin. He's really solid at the road courses. He's good at Michigan. He's good at all. Well, I don't know about Indy, but he's good at those tracks. All the 4 tracks coming up. I think he probably does just enough, even though it's only a 13-point lead. Unless he just really sucks at one of them, I think Hamlin does actually get the championship, regular season championship.
A little nugget on Kevin Harvick in 550 equipment. He's got the second best place average finish at 7.8, only behind Kyle Busch. So just a little data nugget there. He does have 5 top 10s or 5 top 5s in 10 races. So he is strong in 550 equipment, and they have been getting a little bit stronger. That's why I feel kind of strongly at this point.
The thing that is concerning, though, is average fast laps is only 6.3, and average laps led is 2.9. Now, we know he hasn't been leading, kind of can disregard that a little bit, but the fast laps is a little bit concerning.
But they've been
you got to have
speed.
speed. You got to have speed to
Absolutely
be up front and put yourself in position to win. I will not be surprised if Harvick wins Michigan. Not in the least. I mean, I'll more than likely be having lineups with him in there. May even, if the odds look good, may even take him for some straight ups. But at this point, with what we've seen, I think he misses the playoffs.
We'll soon find out. The 4 weeks of pure excitement has been kind of crazy to have 2 weeks off.
So just for fun, we'll do obviously a little bit more in depth once we know how all the dominoes have fallen. We'll do more than likely like a playoff episode, and we'll go more into depth about the where all the drivers are at playoff points wise, the tracks, the stats. But just from where we're sitting right now on this vacation break, have you been swayed on your championship pick at all? On who you think wins the championship? Because I believe you said Kyle Busch, correct?
Kyle Busch was my pick going into the season.
I think you said he was going to win 20 races.
It was something like 5, I think.
Okay.
But he's been strong as of late. Last week, obviously, had that.
He would have won probably at New Hampshire if NASCAR didn't screw him.
Yeah, so we got that, but Rowdy had a lot of fun on vacation, just like I had a lot of fun on vacation. Sitting back, having a Rowdy energy drink is actually pretty refreshing.
They're really not bad.
No, they really are solid. But I don't know if I've seen enough to feel confident as him being the champion in the 750 equipment. And I think, like I've talked about here, especially in recent weeks, Truex kind of looking stronger and stronger, and he's already had really strong performances at tracks that matter in the playoffs. I'm looking at him potentially to be someone that really performs when it matters and gets the job done. So that's really where I'd land. His teammate, Martin Truex Jr. How about yourself?
I really can't disagree with you too much because, we had a pretty lengthy discussion a few episodes back about Truex and how he had really started to slip. But you kind of take away the New Hampshire stats, he's kind of picked it back up. You're right. They've had really good runs at the playoff tracks. My pick was Chase Elliott. I think if he makes the championship 4, it's a pretty strong pick. But at this point, I'm a little concerned that he makes the championship 4. He might have to be one of those where he wins at Martinsville again to get in. And if that's the case, I'm liking that pick. But at this point, I am a little concerned that he makes that championship 4. I think a guy that I believe is going a little under the radar, and if he makes the championship 4, watch out. I think Logano might get his second championship. He's got solid Phoenix numbers. He driver rating wise, he's the second best driver in the 750 horsepower package, just a little bit below Denny Hamlin. He has a win on the dirt, so a little different, but still average finish of 5.7, the best out of any of these top drivers on 750s. I think Logano is kind of sliding a little under the radar. And you mentioned how fast he was, even though he was like 2 laps down most of the race. He raced his way up there.
Oh, yeah. He really showed a lot to me. And I almost went with Logano with my pick, but I truly think Truex has just a slight upper hand. But Joey Logano and that team and 750 equipment continue to perform. He's gotten better and better in road course environments over the last year or two. And just, to me, I think that really shores up how this playoff schedule plays out. I would not be surprised by any stretch of the imagination to see him win.
Now, he can certainly win at Kansas. That's in that last round, I believe. Yeah, Kansas. Texas is not really one of his best tracks. So if he wins at Kansas, awesome, great, he's in. That's what he did last year. But if he doesn't do it, if he doesn't get a win in that last round, the thing that might hurt him is if it comes down point-wise between like him and Truex. Truex has had a little bit better stats on the 550s. He could end up doing a little bit better performance-wise on those mile and a halves. And if Chase Elliott wins Martinsville, or obviously Martin wins Martinsville or something like that, then that's where Logano might not have enough to make that championship for. But I think if he makes it at Phoenix with how well they've run all year in the 750s, they're going to be pretty stout. They're going to be pretty tough to beat.
Well, I'm sure we'll hear it a million times, but every position is a point. Rick Allen will say multiple times over the broadcast, and it really will be in full effect in those last 4 races for sure. So we'll just see who has better equipment and when it matters.
Any other thing you wanted to kind of touch on before we wrap this up? We've talked about quite a bit. It's been really a pretty fun episode. We still got about another week before we get back to the grind. Try to get you guys back on some cash and tickets and whatnot. Been kind of jonesing for those lineup builds and whatnot, so I'm ready for it. But anything else that you wanted to kind of touch on that we hadn't mentioned yet?
No, the break's been refreshing. I've been able to enjoy a little bit of time off and kind of take the last couple of days and relax, and then a couple more days from that we're going to be full-fledged back into it, and we'll be producing our race guide and all of our normal content. Really excited to bring back the race day rundown and do that for everybody on race day. That's an added part of this 2020 season or 2021 season that has been fun for us to do. We absolutely love that. Any other content that we produce is available on our Patreon, and all of our Patreon members, we truly do appreciate you. Thank you so much for that. It helps us continue to improve our show and our set and everything that we're doing here. So definitely thankful for that. There's still opportunity to get in on some, since it's our first season, we're offering early access pricing. So if you want to go take advantage of that, the link's down below in the description. And then everybody that's following on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, thank you for that as well. We try to post all of our links to every piece of content in those on those platforms, so you'll get notifications and see whenever that content is readily available. And then obviously YouTube and then our podcast subscribers, thank you very much that we've seen great continued growth on both platforms, on YouTube and then our podcast. Thank you for all the likes and the comments. We continue to love and ask for that engagement. Anything you don't see, let us know. We want to continue to have this develop with your input, and thank you for showing us when you do win. It's a huge thing that we enjoy seeing, because it shows that our content's relevant to your success, and we truly do enjoy seeing winners. But yeah, man, I'm excited to kind of get back into it. The nice break was definitely refreshing, but we're going to be getting right back into it come Watkins Glen.
Yeah, you pretty much hit all the key points on the way out. This is going to be a fun last 4 races, and these playoffs is going to be they're going to be pretty epic. I think a lot of teams, I think they're going to be going for it now that they've positioned themselves. They know last year of the car, get as much out of this equipment as you can, and let's go try to win a championship. That's what you want to see in this gen car on the right track, and bring in the new car. So I'm really looking forward to these last 14 races. It's crazy. It feels like it's already winding down, but yet there's still 14 more races to cover and to try to win at and just enjoy overall. So really looking forward to it, but definitely thankful for this break. I hope that NASCAR kind of implements something like this moving forward, because it's been a lot for us. I can only imagine what it's like for these crew members and teams and drivers and all that going across the country. I'm really excited for this break. It was nice.
Well, thanks for watching, and if you liked what you saw, please hit that subscribe button. But we'll be back at it next week with both our full episode and our race day rundown. But until then, I'm Joe, that's Jeremy, and this has been the DK Garage.
See you next time.